Are you wonderful? Okay.
Now it's going to transcribe everything we say. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We have Tosha here. He's going to give us some good information when it comes to your tree preparation in the fall and spring and winter and whatnot. So, like I said before, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat if you can, or unmute yourself. And we are recording this, as I mentioned, so it will be available to watch after the fact. So for those who weren't available to make it tonight, or if you want to rewatch it again because Tosha has so much knowledge you couldn't fit it all in one night, then that works too.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Here you go, guys. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Toso Bozik, and this is my, I think, 7 or 8 webinar in the last 2 weeks. I giving a presentation of the preparing trees for fall and winter. And last week I was giving the talk together with assistant fire chief with Red Deer County. And he was talking about fire smarting and the things what Red Deer County does. I will a little bit touch on the fire smarting, and as I said, guys, you can ask the question anytime, pop up or either chat or whatever, and we can go from there. I've been doing this for 28 years. I'm a forest engineer, an arborist, and agrologist on top of that. This is my 5th year as a private business. And the business name is ATTS Group Incorporated, and I provide a range of the consulting services come to the trees. One of the several services that I cover is forensic tree expert for insurance and legal services when people, usually when the trees got killed or damaged by the herbicides or fire. Actually, when the fire went through your county, I got hired by the insurance company to do the evaluation appraisal of the trees that burned around the home. And it's on the radius of 270 feet from your home. Actually, if you have insurance, you're eligible for $50,000. I usually get between 500 and 2,000 emails and phone calls come to the insects and diseases and problem with the trees. And even today, I told Patricia that I got 10 emails and phone calls, people problem with the trees all over the province of Alberta. And I said, oh my goodness, it's almost November and still something is going on. And I provide a range of the services to municipality, from risk assessment and hazard assessment, inventories, and many other things. As I said, I used to work for the provincial government, Alberta Agriculture, as agroforest and woodlot specialist, and come to the shelter belts and windbreaks and woodlot management. I have quite a bit of experience. If you guys want to scan, or if you can, this is a QR code that you can go right away on my website. You can go Yard Whispers, and there is a blog. On that blog, you're gonna find a 4-section. One of the insects and diseases, one of the tree care, and you're gonna have a gazillion some basically fact sheets. Your county graciously pay me an annual fee to provide the service to the county, come to the insect diseases, educational webinars and workshops and hands-on things that I provide to the county. And Patricia has all of the information from me comes to tree insects and disease and many other. And the last and not least, I think if you guys do have a problem, my preference, don't contact me, contact the Patricia or somebody from Ag Service Department, Jen or Melissa, but most of the time it's through Patricia. She collects all of the information, and she's also all of the county staff is also quite knowledgeable. But if they cannot solve, she sent the email to me. As I said, today I got 2 emails from Patricia, some of the problem with the trees. So as I said, if you do have a problem, contact Patricia and Melissa or Jen, and they will let me know what is the problem. I always start with key messages. I will cover a little bit about tree planting. Still, people today are planting the trees. It's still not late. And it's a perfect timing for our landscape industry. And if you want to plant the tree and caliper trees, I'm going to cover that a little bit tonight. Water your trees, please. It's still not late. Water your trees, and we're going to cover about watering. And that's the best thing you can do to your tree, is water them now and try to protect the roots. And don't forget, in the springtime, it's very dry and windy, and all of the water that you put now will be available in the springtime, and that will save your tree. Wood chips. It's still not late, no snow. Put lots of wood chips and gonna cover that. Again, watering the wood chips is goes hands to hands, and it's the best thing you can do on your trees. I'm gonna cover about some of the things that you can do with fall preparation, such as removing infested leaves, no fertilizing, no any soil excavation and root and trunk damages. That's very detrimental for trees right now preparing for the winter. I will cover about pruning a little bit, and mostly I can tell you right now, prune only dead and broken branches. Do not prune whatsoever any live tissue. And the reason for pruning is reduce the risk of fire. It's the best time now that you guys do the pruning or tree removal or dead grass removal around your shelter belts, around your home, and don't wait for the springtime. In the springtime, you can start the fire. Now it's the best time that you can do the pruning, removal, and cutting. And it's very important that you do it now. If you have some young trees, especially fruit trees, you might use the plastic guard. You will have a problem with the wildlife, and I'm going to mention a few of them. All of you along the roads, Alberta transportation use around 7 tons of sodium per 1 kilometer of road. So there's lots of sodium that most of the time end up in the ditches, and then from there end up in the trees. And if you do have a livestock, again, I always say to people, remove your livestock usually in September, October, not to damage the roots, but also because the manure of the livestock is fertilizer, and that can be very detrimental for the roots and trees that is shutting down. So once the soil froze, you can bring the livestock back. Fall tree planting, I will cover. You can only plant burlap and basket and maybe some potted. Prepare your soil and make sure the hole is 2 or 3 times wider than potted tree basket. I always said one of the main cause of the troubles for tree is people, generally speaking, plant way too deep, and that creates a bunch of problems. Don't add any good soil more than 10%. And if you add a more good soil, mix them up with the parent soil. Make sure that you backfill properly. Don't leave any cracks and openings, and that's where, if you keep any cracks and openings, that's where the cold air comes into the roots and literally freeze your roots, and that's how you kill the tree. Put the wood chips, water, and stake if needed. Most of the time, you don't need to any staking for your trees in your county. You're not like in southern Alberta. Uh, for the site preparation, tilling, disking, anything that you can do the site prep would be very beneficial for your tree. If you planted caliper trees or potted trees now late in the fall, you have to do that. Your ultimate goal is to get the roots of this tree in this parent soil, whatever parent soil you have. And when you don't do the site prep, it's very hard for the fine, tiny roots to get into your compacted soil, and they struggle. So you need to do the soil preparation one way or another. Here is another example of the soil prep. What these people did, they did a very nice soil preparation, and then they plant all of the caliper trees. And those trees, they have a probably 10 times better chance that the roots of this tree is going to go into this parent soil. They also put the wood chips around and etc. And you have a way better chances than just planting the tree in this open area kind of and plug them in and don't do any soil preparation. Whatever you do, some really good soil preparation. Planting hole, it's a very common mistake that lots of people do. They don't really dig up the wide hole. Even the holes that you see on the picture from the caliper tree, and this was taken picture last year from Sherwood Park Golf Course. and it was in November. I can't remember now, 10, 15 or something like that. As you can see, look at how much is bigger the hole. I would even go further. I would probably take an extra more 1 foot more of this area and make a bigger hole. And then what you do here is over there on the left side, there you have a lots of that parent soil that was dug up. Take a maybe 10% of the good soil, mix them up with this parent soil that you excavated, and then you do the backfilling. So if you buy the expensive burlap and basket trees, you got them in a burlap, and you have a wires that is going around. You remove that ropes and burlap and cut the wires to the ground. Then they put the tree, and then I usually take a 2x4 and come across, and this spot here, and I'm gonna show you where the trunk begins and the roots are begins, has to be in your level of your soil, of the hole, basically. Many people literally dig up to way too deep hole, and then they bury half of this we call root collar inside, and that's one of the very common cause. So again, what I do many times, I dig up the hole what needs to be, and I look at where the trunk begins and where the root begins. That has to be in the same level as my grass, pretty much, and that's my depth. So be very conscious about that, because again, most common mistakes are people planting too deep. You have a two choice: burlap and basket or potted stock. In any case, whatever you buy, it's just different in price. And this one is $500, $600. This one is maybe $150 or $200, and this one is 80 or 100, depending on your pocket. But this is what you plant it right now in the fall. You don't plant small seedlings in the fall or cuttings or anything like that. It's just a big caliper stock. Again, for the depth, you try to build a hole that is like much more shallow sauce, and this blue line represent where the trunk begins and where the root begins, and that's your depth of the planting hole. Here is how it look like. If you cut bigger, again, I will even make a more bigger, dig up the more soil, make a slope kind of thing, and look at that's what we call root collar, and it's right there. That has to be in the level of your grass. Okay, and again, sometimes I take a 2x4, come across and see if it's on the level. If it's too deep, maybe if you go, half inch or something like that, or quarter inch, that's fine, because eventually the soil is going to go down. But again, you never ever bury that what is called the root collar. If you have a potted, try to take some of the roots out, disturb this potted matted spot, and then you plant. And as I said, you do the backfilling. Make sure you really do the proper closing the holes, any openings, any cracks in the soil. It's the where the cold air comes in and kill your roots. So, and the last and not least, you put a wood chips. And you don't put the wood chips next to the trunk. Usually leave 6 inches away. Again, the hand is showing where is the branch collar. Root collar. Where is the root collar? Root collar is over there. Root collar is over there. That has to be visible. Don't ever bury that in a deep soil. If you guys go in anywhere in natural forest or anywhere with the mother nature, you're always gonna see this we call root flare or root collar, and it's always above the ground. You see those roots, and this is a zone we call root flare or root collar. Here. Here's the way the trunk begins. Here's the way the roots. Again, you never bury that. And it's very common when I come and do the inspection of the trees, people bury this around and you don't see this. You don't see this in a small trees. And right away, that's created lots of problems. So make sure that you recognize where is that root flare, and that has to be on the level of your grass or soil on top soil. Again, if you go in natural forest, every single tree in natural forest, you're gonna see this. It's a mother way nature. If you bury it again, you're gonna have lots of disease and the root bound. Here is a prime example where people bury it. You see right away when I did inspection of this tree, right away you don't see that root flare. Right away. And of course, I reject all of those trees. This tree, again, unfortunately, done for all three of them, done for the rural municipalities by the local landscaper, completely wrongly tree planting. And on top of that, this on the right side, they didn't pull the burlap out. They didn't cut the wire. They create these little tiny cracks and holes and everything else. They put the wood chips and damage on top of that bark. And again, they charge $1,100 municipality. And I came and did the inspection and I said, no, you're not going to accept that, and tell them to do the work again. Of course, they're not happy, but again, this is not the way you plant a caliper tree. This is interesting also part on two on the left. It was official opening as some facility in rural municipality in northern Alberta, and they planted the tree, nice trees, everything else. I came and I saw this right away on the left side. I said, guys, you planted the tree so wrongly. And it was a bunch of MLAs and councillors and minister and bunch of other. I said, this is completely wrong. So what I did from the left side, I dug up and look at look at where is the root flare. And again, of course, this tree was dying and will be dead in 2 or 3 years. Um, and again, it's a very common mistake. And when you have a big tree and mature tree, again, you don't see the root flare. And this is also damaged by the weed whacker, and this tree is on the way out and dying in that sense. So really, it's very important that when you plant a tree, that you know where is the root flare or root collar, and don't plant the tree too deep. If you do plant too deep, this is what's happening. Uh, Tree roots stay in that hole. They cannot go in the parent, usually clay soil or very poor soil, and the only thing they're living around that little potted or burlap and basket. And you can see how the roots going around and around. We only call this root bound. And after 3 or 4 years, all of the trees are dead. And this is a direct consequences of the deep planting. So make sure that the hole is at least twice or 3 times bigger. Make sure you do the proper tree planting. Make sure that you know where is the root and branch color. Always remember outside tree that they have that root flare visible. And even if you plant the small little seedlings, it still exists. You can see where the roots begins, where the trunk begins. Put the wood chips as much as you can, and again try to protect. They planted the tree here very well, put the wood chips proper depth, but then the rabbit came in and damaging this young tree, and this is actually city of Edmonton, and again unfortunately killed the tree. If you can put the mesh wire, you don't need to the stake in generally speaking. And this is on the orchards. If you have apples and cherries and some kind of young valuable fruit trees, you put this we call a guard, plastic guard, and this actually protects your bark from the sun during the winter time, because what happened during the sunny days, sun reflects and hit the tree and bark splits, and that's create a bunch of problems. Putting this one plastic guard or tube, I'm going to show you later on, it will really greatly save your young tree bark and also save you from the rabbits and deer and maybe even porcupine. And then you put them now, and then in April and May you remove that and keep it for the next year until bark became harder and it's not going to split by the heat from the sun. Drought, we all of us familiar with the drought of 21 to fall 2023. The results of those two droughts that we have is that lots of trees now are dead and dying, especially spruce. I got to this year so many spruce trees and dead and dying, and not just spruce, but the other trees. And I said, it's a drought. And they said, Tosha, we got enough rain. I said, no, that drought killed the roots of the trees in 21 and fall of 23. And now with the results of that, we see the lots of trees dead and dying. And there's a bunch of symptoms of the drought. Even this year in some of the area, Alberta, I've seen the under the drought condition, and trees usually have leaves on the edge getting really brown as you can see here on the bottom, and of course spruce trees getting reddish, scrubby looking tree, and the tree tried to survive. So there's a bunch of symptoms of the drought. And again, there is again capping and curling and a bunch of other small leaves, dieback usually from the tree crown. Once they're attacked by the drought, insects and disease are following. And it's a combination of those two things, that drought, insect disease, and basically that's how a tree got killed. The biggest thing with the drought, folks, is the soil. Always people pay attention, or you see the above ground, the drought. It's the lack of moisture in the soil that is going to kill the trees above ground. And when it's a drought, soil became so much compacted and literally doesn't absorb the moisture, and then doesn't allow the roots access to that water, even available water, and it killed the small fine roots. And on top of that, it's allowed the cracks, and following the cracks, usually in the fall, that's where the cold air come in the root zone and kill the trees. So it's the water, and that's why I said more watering them now is absolutely the most important thing you can do. It's gonna fill up all of those cracks. It's gonna water is gonna come around the roots, and frozen water around the roots is actually a very good insulator, and it will not allow the dry air come into your roots. The other thing of the drought in the soil, when we do get a rain, because the soil is so dry and doesn't absorb so much moisture, most of the water that we get from rain, it's run off. And people said to me, Tosha, we get some regular rain amount, and why my trees are dying of drought? Because of the last 2 or 3 years, the soil was very dry. So watering them and watering the slow is very important. I always said, did you have a rain that was like for 6-7 days, slow rain at literally soaking your soil? Or you got a rain in 2 or 3 hours, or maybe half day, and most of the water is run off. You might have a maybe half inch or maybe inch on top, but that's not enough for the roots of the trees. Good friend of mine, also arborist and dear friend, urban forester in city of Lethbridge. I learned from Lindsay so much over my career here in Alberta. And he sent me a photos in city of Lethbridge. Said, Tosha, why my elders scrubby? Why they're dying? I said it's drought. And he said, there's no way, Tosha, because they have a program in city of Lethbridge in an urban area that these neighbors, they water the tree. Most of the roots of these elm trees are in private properties. And people are watering those trees to make sure the trees are surviving, because this is of course, is a cement and asphalt, and this is a very small, narrow strip. So the most of the roots are there, and people watering like left, right, and center, and they got a deduction on the water bill. So I said, no, Lindsay, drought. And he said, no way. So we got so much rain this fall, this summer and fall. People are watering. I said, Lindsay, go check it out. So he did went check it out. And with a soil probe, completely dry. And also the droughty soil, it changed the chemical, bio and chemical structure of the soil, because the soil is full of the viruses, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and gazillions of other things, and also change the microelements. So I asked him, can you take this soil sample, sent to the lab, and see what happened with the microelements? And he got results. He said, oh my God, yeah, there is more iron than it should have been there. Again, it was drought that are changing the biochemistry of the soil and doesn't let it easy for the roots to access the moisture and nutrients. And that's why you have this scrub. It's still a very good looking tree, but it's declining. And that's one of the challenges with drought. Once you get in this stage, you cannot reverse. Those branches mostly is going to be disappear. Even though, and he said there is enough rain this summer in city of Lethbridge, and for sure those are people, he knows them personally, they water those tree, but that was not enough in that sense. So whatever you do with the tree when it comes to the drought, maybe next year, hopefully not, or now in the fall, make sure that you water your trees slowly and properly water your trees, and try to soak as much as possible water in your soil. And again, this is again one of those other tree planting I complete rejection. This landscaper didn't pull the wires, didn't pull the burlap. The wiring is still there. Look at the crack. On top of that, that person damaged the tree in the first place, and it's this crack where right now in next 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, cold air comes in, goes inside of the roots, and literally freeze the water inside of the roots. And so many times, folks, you call me or call Patricia in the springtime, and my tree was completely green, 60-foot spruce, completely green in the fall, no insects, no diseases. It's a winter time, and then in the springtime, completely red and dead. The only thing that can kill that tree is the cold air coming the roots. And having the wood chips and water them in fall, close these openings, close the empty spaces, and they are perfect insulator. Okay, so if you plant the trees, don't plant like this. Don't do that. You're gonna kill your tree, no doubt about that. For the watering, it's depending on what kind of soil you have. Is it clay and sandy soil? Most of you guys don't have a lots of sandy soil in Yellowhead County. Age of the trees, of course, newly planted and few years old trees require more watering. Type of trees, poplars and willows and arches, they love water and they love and they can handle lots of water. While pine and other one, they grow in much more dry site. Quality and quantity, you guys have a lots of quantity as well as a quality. You're not like in central Alberta when you have a high sodium levels and not much quantity. And what kind of system you're going to use. So whatever you do, make sure that right now what you do, you take a garden trowel or a knife or a screwdriver and try to push into the soil. If it goes very hard, it's dry and you need a watering. If you take a screwdriver and easily put in your soil and pull it out, and you see the moisture in the on the metal parts, therefore it's enough water. Okay. Again, mulch is the best thing you can do. Put the mulch and then you water over the mulch, and then let the water soak slowly into the soil. Where to water, we call a drip line. And again, many people made mistake to watering the trees. They take a hose and put right away next to the trunk, and that's the last place you need to water your tree, especially a big tree. We call this drip line. As you can see on these blue dotted lines on both sides, this is where the fine roots are. Roots don't go deep. 95% of the roots are maybe in 4 or 5 inches of the topsoil. That's it, or whatever topsoil you have. If you have more than that topsoil, that's great. But roots don't go deep. Very few roots goes maybe more than 3 feet. And again, roots around the trunk is keeping the tree standing. It's those are fine roots. What are further away, they need to be protected. They need to be watered. And that's how you do the watering. Wood chips, here's the prime example. You put 4 inches of wood chips around, water around the wood chips. This was a picture taken 2021 when there was a heat dome in Edmonton, and I was walking my dog. Lots of trees in neighboring area was dying and showing the symptoms of the drought. I went to this area, and literally after inch of the depth, I found the moisture. None of these trees experienced drought in 2021 because these wood chips keep the moisture. That's the biggest thing that wood chip does. I prefer something we call arborist wood chips. Lots of people ask me for those thick bark that are usually coming from BC. Don't do that. You have a bunch of wood chips in your county, and you have an arborist who would gladly dump the wood chips to your property and that you can use it. And again, if you do the watering this further away, watering this area over the wood chips. And if you put the wood chips, don't pile them up along the trunk. Look at here above. it's 6 inch or 7 inch away. If you pile them up, it's going to keep the moisture, and the bark is going to get the fungi, and it's going to kill your trees. On top of that, there is a bunch of walls. It's going to come and grill your tree. So create a donuts. Don't create a volcano. Arborist wood chips is the best, and there is a plenty of it. There is a, I always now forget, drop chips or drop chips it's called website. You can guys Google where you can find in the local area which arborist offering basically for free, and you can put it down and protect your roots. The biggest thing from the wood chips is protect the roots from cold air and winter freezing. That's why I said that you have a 60-foot tall spruce tree, come springtime, dead. The only thing that can kill your tree from now till spring is cold air coming the roots to the cracks. And those are things avoidable. When it's too hot, wood chips provide excellent retention during the dry summer or dry fall, and hence water infiltration. It goes slowly in your roots, and of course moderate the temperature and reduce the root stress. So there are so many beneficial things that wood chips can do. It's free. Some of the municipalities, they have a wood chip sites for the residents. I know City of Edmonton, for example, has, where I can go as a resident and pick up the wood chips for free. I was in Flagstaff last week, and Flagstaff County is put a two satellite area where the arborist company dropped the wood chips, and or they use the wood from the landfill that is clear of any contamination, and they drop into those areas, and people in Flagstaff County go and pick up the wood chips and put the wood chips around the trees. For the fall and winter,
Hey, Tosha.
go ahead.
Tosha. Oh, I
Yep.
was just gonna say, it looks like Anton has his hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, I do have a question. Using the arborist wood chips, is there any risk of contamination with disease and insects or any parasites from the wood, from those wood chips to our trees?
Excellent question, Anton. No. What happened most of the time, yes, if you do have a black knot, most of the arborists is going to separate them, and they don't want to contaminate it. Most of them, they're not contaminated. Most of those arborist wood chips are coming from the solid wood of the big tree or elm tree or ash tree remaining. And even if you do get some of the contamination of the various diseases, because they are so much shipped and already dried, and they will be exposed, so you're not going to have any problem from them to bounce back. And many times, even if, for example, you have a black knot that people do the chips, you put them in the spruce, it's not going to affect the spruce at all in that sense. So all of the diseases that you might have in your twigs and branches that for chipping, most of them, they are shredded, and many of them are, when they're doing that, they're already dry, and they will not be able to survive and bounce back. Most of the diseases and I'm going to cover some of them, are spread by the wind, or they're on the leaves, and they stay on the leaves, and then people don't rake the leaves, and the springtime rain comes in, and as the rain hit this little leaf, it spread the spores back, and spores back come to the tree, but not coming from the wood chips. So I would not worry about contamination, Anton. But that's a very good question.
Thank you.
Yep. So what you can do right now, what's happening with the fall and winter, of course, lack of the soil moisture. You might have some insects and diseases, cold temperature, winter, and wildlife and livestock damage. So there's lots of things that come going after your trees. On the fall needle drop, it's a very common. I send usually, I think Patricia, I sent in September. Usually, when you see the especially pine and spruce, it's a natural phenomenon that every conifer trees, usually after 7 years of the growing needles, they simply just died off. It's like our hair. Every day our hair is falling off and new hair come back, and the same thing with this. So people get a little bit scary and say, oh my god, I have a lots of yellowing. Usually it's inwards close to the trunk, Again, nothing to worry about it, and just don't panic in that sense. It's a very common practice, a common natural thing. Some of the insects that I'm gonna cover in diseases. Today I got the spider mites, and it was from Stettler County, and damage from the spider mites. Again, heavy rain and soak with the water, you might knock them off, and that water, when you try to get rid of the spider mites, you're also gonna get rid of the you're gonna water your trees in the same time. It's unusual that I got in beginning of the November almost that they have a spider mites damage on the spruce trees, but yeah, it's still there and still active. It's kind of weird. Um, Spruce beetle. I know you have in your county. This picture was taken just north of Evansburg in the shelter belt. I did an inspection. Those two trees were completely healthy 3 years ago, nice and healthy, and it was a small little tiny holes like a pin size, and you might see that some of the sawdust on the bottom of the tree. If you lift up the bark, you can see this blackish color small little beetle. It's encroaching into the private forest in Yellowhead County. More last 4 or 5 years, I see them lots of in west of Rocky Mountain House, Nordic, Forest Trunk Road, Brazo Dam, Hinton area, but not as much in Evansburg and Edson and Drayton Valley and further east. In last 4 years, I get more and more. Those are the same as the mountain pine beetle that they just they kill spruce. They're hard to detect, and if you have them, go close inspection. Trees are already dead. Uh, Remove them. Try to take the bark off and use the firewood. And if you can't, then cut and burn the whole tree. If you keep them like this, they're gonna stay over the winter time, and then next spring is gonna fly and go spread more in your trees. So those are really nasty ones, same as the mountain pine beetle, but just on the spruce. And again, it's a very tiny holes, and you may see the sawdust. Sometimes you may not see it. But when you have a tree like this that was completely healthy, I went and I said, this is weird. And I inspected and I lift up and I said, yeah, this is spruce beetle. And if you see the woodpeckers on your spruce trees and they're going after, yeah, then most likely you have this beetle. And you lift up under the bark, you're going to see the tunnels and what we call frass on the tunnels, and then again, that's we can identify that as a spruce beetle. So that there is, if you have some insects and diseases problem, you can give to the county, and county can send that to the provincial lab, and provincial lab is going to use the DNA testing or microscope or a bunch of other things, and they will identify precisely what kind of insects and disease you have, and it's a free of charge. So absolutely, guys, I would encourage you to use. But again, this one is marching, and the last 2 years I got so many spruce tree on the private land, on the shelter belts, that is really killed by the spruce beetle. The other one is called very similar as a spruce beetle, absolutely very similar. But what I find out, they're attacking young spruce trees in the shelter belts that are maybe 30 feet to the height. And this is a prime example. In year one, they come and they kill top of the trees, and then bottom is alive, and then year two further, and then eventually kill whole young tree. Again, some of the sawdust, I lift them up. They are so similar as the spruce beetle. I'll send them to the lab. Lab went under the microscope. This is a 1 millimeter, so you can see how big it is. It's like a grain of rice. And no way I can distinguish between this one and the previous one. So again, remove the dead trees. There is no, guys, chemicals that can control this one or this one. So there is no any pesticides, sorry, insecticides that can control them. Mount Pine Beetle, you guys are all familiar with that one. The good news is it's like a 92% decrease what we used to have from 2022 to 2023, which is good. But said that, honestly, this year and last year, I haven't seen a single tree infested by the Mount Pine beetle. Said that in your county at Jerry, oh my God, what's the name of the campground north of
Jerry
the,
Vanderwell.
yeah, Jerry Wonderwell. I found a new Mount Pine Beetle. That's the only area that I found a few trees with infested by the new Mount Pine Beetle. In other campgrounds, when I do the assessment, I didn't find any. On the Norjack, no, I didn't find over there. There is some other actually disease that is kind of topping the pine, and it's a western gall rust. But I haven't seen any. I haven't seen too many Mount Pine Beetle in that site either. It was from last 4 or 5 years that some of the trees that got killed in Norjack campground, but nothing new so far. I haven't seen. Move some diseases. I think Patricia picture on the left you sent me way back from some of the fruit trees, I think, or maybe I took it. I don't know anymore. It can go after the hardwoods and can go after the conifers. In the spruce, you can see the whole branches are dead. And the best thing you can do, prune all of those branches and put them in and burn them during the winter time. In this one, if you have so much along the trunk and it's oozing, yeah, then you might consider removing the trees, depending how much damage it is. And I've seen this one in actually in Grand Prairie area, the 10 acres of the natural forest completely killed by this disease. So the only thing you can do, especially in the spruce, prune them and burn them, and do it now or during the winter time. Poplar leaf spot, which is you have it. If you see something like this on your poplar, balsam poplar or hybrid poplar or even Swedish aspen, rake the leaves and right now and dispose them. Most of the time I tell the people don't rake the leaves, leave it. It's a good for nutrients and soil and etc. But if you have this disease, it's the best thing to do is remove it and burn them, and that will try to reduce the amount of this disease that's coming out. Bronze leaf disease also you have usually on Swedish aspen. When you see the Swedish aspen and in winter time that the leaves are still standing and brown, you know that you have this one. Again, removal. Don't chip and compose for the firewood, generally speaking. Said that again, if you take this and chip and put under the spruce and pine and cedars and anything else, it's not gonna spread. If you put under this one, yeah, you might have from the leaves coming back, but otherwise, it's perfectly fine to use the for wood chips, but put them not in a Swedish aspen, put them in conifers. Fire blight, it's very nasty. I think even today I got one client county sent me, and it was a fire blight. All of those disease, it's best time to prune them dead branches and twigs is now or later on, month or 2 or 3 months from now, and remove them when it's cold winter that you're not going to be able to spread it. If you're doing the growing season, you have to cut and sterilize your pruning tools after every cut. In the winter time, you don't need to do it, and it's very nasty. It's pretty bad. Pruning, again, do not prune trees in the fall whatsoever. But if you do the pruning, do the in winter, only dead and broken branches. The biggest thing for the pruning is the fire hazards. You have to have a reason for pruning. I mentioned some of the insects and diseases. Safety, if it's matter of safety that you have trees around your home, around the properties, around the power lines, around the where infrastructure, yeah, definitely you need to prune the trees and reduce the potential hazards. But again, you got to have a reason for it. Again, we were going to cover pruning workshop probably next spring. We have always now 3 or 4 years in a row. Yellowhead County has a pruning workshop, kind of hands-on when I come in and show you guys how to prune. So there is some basic principles. One of them is don't cut the branch collar. Every tree that you guys see, this is on the pine, Scots pine, you see the trunk on the left, you see the branch, you see this swelling. Do not cut that swelling. Do not damage that swelling. Make a cut here. Where is this line? You see the another tree or the poplar tree or Swedish aspen. You see the branch, you see the trunk, you see the swelling. do not cut that or damage that branch swelling. Okay, and the reason for that, if you have a big trees, again, do the 3-way cut. You do the undercut, you take a second cut, basically take the weight off. You see the swelling. This is a green, where is the final cut. Same thing in the coniferous. You do the undercut, you get the second cut. Again, you see this swelling, you make a final cut, and that's the way of the 3-way pruning. It's very simple. Do not ever come with a chainsaw and try to cut right away where is a green line. You're gonna, this weight of this heavy branch is gonna rip apart half of your trunk. And the reason why not damage that swelling is this how they close the wound. You can see that. They close the wound and doesn't let diseases come into your wood. If you damage, then it's completely, it cannot be able to close the wound, and then the fungi comes in and make a rot, and that's where the trunk gets rot and cavities and a bunch of problems. For some of the insects, if you have a white pine weevil or oyster shell scales or bronze birch borer or poplar borer, again, during the winter time, you might be able to do the pruning and try to get rid of them. For the diseases, I already mentioned about fire blight and poplar leaf spot, the black knot. I always said the best time is to prune is in March, February, January, February, March. It's definitely affected lots of cherries or prunus genus, but again, do it in January, February, March. Even in December, when the tree is shut down, do not do any black knot pruning when the sap start flowing. You will spread more of this, and it's spread by the wind, and not much you can do. And it's native disease. Anglets, this one can really rip apart all of your trees, guys. All of the nice watering and fertilizing and pruning, everything else, if you have a heavy moose population or deer population, they will come after your trees. A friend of mine who lives in Breton, he got every year, hunters in his property and take the moose and reduce the population because they can kill lots of trees. Porcupines, that's the other one. They don't kill a lot, but they can kill mature trees. And again, not much you can do about it. Walls, it's a little tiny mice looking. When you have some of the shrubs or trees, do not put wood chips around your shrubs or trees. That's where they live, and then they live on the wood chips, and then they climb during the winter time on the snow, and griddle your tree, and that's where they kill the tree. So always, that's why we always say make a donuts, don't make a volcano. Winter burn or winter kill and sunburn, it's very common. Usually southeast and southwest side. Usually it's going to happen March, April. Make sure what you do, guys, if you have a winter burn, go and look on the buds. If you take the bud out of this tree and kind of break it, and if you see green inside, it's going to flush out what you see here. It's going to flush out. If you take a bud and it's crumbling and brown, the branch or tree is that. On the right picture, it was my neighbor cedar. It was completely brown, and I told him not to cut, and he said, "Are you crazy? It's brown." And I inspected, and I said, "No, it's going to come back," and became green. And today, actually, I was walking again, and it's completely green and healthy shrub. Watering the fall and putting the wood chips, and then if you get hit by the winter burn, do the fertilizer in the springtime and try to boost the nitrogen to provide as much as possible green yields. Winter dieback, it usually happens when you plant a tree that is not close to our zone. I have in my backyard silver maple that every year grow like this and then die back and grow like this and die back. But still now that tree is probably still 20 feet tall, and stem is probably 8 inches wide. So, and I still love it. It's maple, and it's, I know it's for zone 4 or 5, but still growing and very well. The only thing you can do is the pruning. Road salt. If you live along the roads, as I said, there is a 1 ton of 7 tons of sodium per 1 kilometer. It's definitely can kill your trees. Spruce is notorious for that. If you have a spruce and along the roads you will have sodium problems, the only thing you can do is plant some of the trees and shrubs that can handle the sodium much better than spruce. Winter sunsclad, which is very common, you can see on the top where the southeast side and bark split and then fungi comes in and kill your trees, and you put what you call plastic guard to protect that, and sun is going to reflect from the plastic, white plastic, and it's not going to create what you see above. Burlap doesn't help at all. So it's the radiation. Basically, when the radiation hit this, it's bounced back and doesn't go and hit young and fresh bark. All fruit trees are acceptable to that, but also ash and maples and birch and cherries and mountain ash. They have very, very tiny, thin and kind of soft bark when they are very young. Try to protect your trees from animals and use the dogs, electrical fence. It's uphill battle, and try your best what you can. Don't fertilize, don't damage the roots, don't damage the bark, don't damage the branch color. And excavating anything right now, it will be very, very detrimental for your trees. So don't do any of that, because again, it's winter is coming and harsh conditions are for the trees. So anything that can create a damage to them, it will be very, very dangerous for the tree. Fire, it's more frequent, and getting more into the agriculture zone. It's most of the time in the past was in the green zone, but now we have pretty much every county that fires are popping up, including the prairie fire. Prairie fire is very dangerous, way more dangerous than the forest fire, moving much faster. And I did a talk in Flagstaff and Newell County, and I told them to keep the sheltables. When the prairie fire hits and hit the trees, it slows down, because tree doesn't burn easily as grass and dry grass, and it's really give the chance for the slowdown of the prairie fire. Most of the fire in a forest zone is lighting, like 70%. In agriculture zone, most of the human caused, either by the fire or power or many things. For any fire, you need the fuel, you need the weather, we need the topography. Fuel, grass, twigs, branches, easily. Logs takes much longer. And distribution, how much you have on the ground, how much is you have on we call ladder, and this is one of the things that you can do is prune your trees of the dead branches, cut your grass right now, because otherwise that grass is going to be dead in the springtime and it can easily spread the fire. Weather, we call 30, 30, 30. One of the things with this 30, temperature is above 30, humidity is below 30, and wind speed is over 30. One of the things what happened when you guys have a fire, and it's happening last 5 years, the temperature overnight or during the day never reached the 30. And I was in Drayton Valley when fire almost entering into the town, and the temperature was like a 14 degrees. But what happened, the reason for that, we have a cold springs, and the cold weather keep the soil cold, and the roots are still kind of frozen and doesn't pump the water above the ground. And if there's no moisture in the trees above the ground, the fire is going to come and burn. And that's what happened with you guys over there. Its temperature was not an issue at the time. Humidity was below 30, and wind speed was, of course, higher. And I know also after the fire, when especially in Edson, I told them that most likely flooding is going to come, because what's happening when you have a natural forest and normal rain, when the rain is raining, forest is taking 80% of the moisture. But after the fire, nothing is holding that water, and it's just run off, and that's why the flooding. So one night we were, all of us worried about Edson going in the flame, and then 2 days later we got flooded. So in that sense, so it's very, you know, crazy things what's going on come to the fire. Topography, slopes. If fire moves much faster uphill, and I know over the Pembina River that some of the folks lost their homes at Evansburg. It went really fast. Same enter into Drayton Valley. It went over the slopes and fast. Our northern slopes are colder and they don't burn as much. And of course, narrow valleys and coulees, of course, they will increase the wind speed and fire moving much faster. The biggest thing is the embers or sparks. They can be thrown up to 2 kilometers. And that's why it's important that you clean your gutters, that you put the sprinklers on your roof, that you cut your grass, that you water your grass. You know, in the case of the fire, it's the embers that is, you know, sparks and sending over and over and landing in the roofs, landing in the grass, and how the fire expand and get bigger and bigger. In your county, you have a Fire Smart assessment program. I would strongly encourage you to contact your chief, and if you need to do the assessment. Our biggest thing is for this one is your zones, what to do around the home and what to do 30 meters from home and what to do more than 30 meters. Again, try to clear up the vegetation, try to clear up any dead trees and any dead branches, pruning them, and etc. So do the fire smarting, and there's a plenty of resources on that. Here's a prime example of the shelter belt. That was lots of dead lower branches, what you see on the center, and many times along the road you have a lots of dead grass, and people are driving or smoking and catch the grass, go into the shelter belts, and then the fire. And of course, in natural woodlots, you have this we call ladder. When the lighting hit starts from there, start burning, and the fire literally goes spiraling around and go into the crown and became what we call the crown fire. Again, what you can do is prune the lower branches that are dead. If you have let's say this shelter belt where is right now cement, if you have a heavy matted grass, don't prune these lower branches, cut the matted grass. Remove the grass, because what happens when you prune, you might have a wind coming through and snowdrift coming through and dust is coming through. So you still try to have a proper shelter belt. But if you have lots of dead grass and maybe some dead branches inside, prune them, absolutely. But deal with the grass. Here's one property close to home, and again they pruned first 10 feet. There is still more dead branches, but again, fire come from the ground is not going to catch those dry little twigs. Come to the tree and shrubs. One of the species that's always people forget, caragana. Caragana is a highly flammable shrub species, same as the mugo pine and the buffalo berry, and of course coniferous, black spruce, jack pine, and etc. Any poplars and willows, they don't burn easily, or black ash, same as alders, chokecherries, pine cherries. So if you do have a Caragana shelter belt or mugo pine, and especially some of the coniferous, definitely doing some pruning and some due diligent work. Be prepared, and again, government has a plenty of resources. Your municipality has a plenty of resources. Come to the fire. The best thing you can do is sprinklers on the roof, cut the grass, water your grass in the spring, and as one fire chief said, permits. Always ask for the permits. Okay. Respect the fire bans and what they have. So, but always ask for the permits. Again, pruning is the best thing, and do the pruning now. Cut the grass now. If you cut the grass now, you're not going to start the fire. Or maybe, let's say, when temperature even further drop down, you're not going to start the fire. If you cut the trees and with the chainsaw and using the quads and tractors or whatever, you most likely you're not going to start the fire, and especially when it's snow on the ground. For sure, you're not going to start the fire. What people made mistake, they start cleaning up the yard and homes in the springtime. And that's the, I always say that's the last that's the time not to do it, because you may start a fire. If you have a power lines or utility company, call them. They will gladly come and do the proper pruning and removal of the branches that can cause and spark the fire. There is a plenty of resources. Your municipality is very well equipped with resources. In the case of the fire, checked with your fire chiefs in the county. You can download plenty of, if you go Fire Smart Canada, there is a plenty of information about the fire. Animals, you will have some damages of the animals, but again, not much you can do. Here is my key messages. If you plant the tree properly. Water, water, water. Put the wood chips. Do the pruning of the dead branches or broken branches or infested by the disease or some insect. Remove them. Winter time is the best time to do that. If you have young trees, protect them using the plastic guard. Be prepared for wildlife damages. Be prepared also for the salt. And don't do any fertilizing and soil disturbance and root and trunk damages. That's me. You can find over there. Again, the best way you guys contact the county, and the county will be the one that is that will take all of the inquiries from you guys. Patricia, I'm gonna stop share and I'm gonna turn back to you, Patricia.
Sure. Thanks, Tosha. I guess, do you mind if people just kind of ask you any questions they have? Any random
Absolutely.
questions?
Any random, any questions, anything, guys. Go for it. Go ahead, Anton.
Hi, Tosha. Thank you very much. It was a great, lots of information. I do have a few questions. Maybe I missed something. So this fall, I will not be able to remove any of the dead branches. Is it safe to remove dead branches on fruiting shrubs throughout the year? Or is it something that should be done before leafing?
You can remove the dead branches anytime. So
Okay.
throughout the year. Now, said that, Anton, when you have dead branches and they are infested with some of the diseases during the growing season, when April, May, June, July, etc. When you're doing that, you're gonna cut and it's gonna be shake it or try to pull them out. You have a better chance to spread some of the diseases that is already existing on that branch. But always that branch you can cut anytime. Doesn't matter, June, July. But again, be very careful. Why I prefer that you remove them now or early in the spring, Anton, is you have a less chance to spread some of the disease. That's all.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? My goodness, everybody's quiet.
I don't see anything in the chat. But if people are able to, they can type in a question there and I can read it out to Tosha if they don't want to unmute themselves.
Can you guys unmute yourselves or not? I don't know.
Patricia, I don't seem to be able to put anything into the chat.
Oh,
Weird.
That's kind
Let's
of
see
weird.
if I can.
So a question, To. So you mentioned about using water that's suitable for irrigation and maybe testing the water. Can you tell me where I can send a sample to have the water tested for irrigation purposes?
That's a good question, Lorraine. To be honest, there is I think municipality or somewhere in the municipality also collect water for the various testing that goes into the government labs. I'm not sure. That's a very good question. In many municipalities, what I experience, I'm not sure Yellowhead, they can collect a test of water and send to the lab, and they're doing the testing. I'm not sure about Yellowhead. And where do you guys, I know the several, my friends in Yellowhead in Brazil County, they collect the water and send to it's a government lab and it's kind of free of charge. But Patricia, you might step into this one. I don't know.
The only water testing I'm aware of is through like the health unit for like your drinking water and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other places that you could send it per se, but
Yeah, that's probably for the health unit. And again, Lorraine, most likely, again, what I don't think so in the county of Yellowhead that you have a high sodium. That's the biggest concern for me. Lots of people in central Alberta, they have a high sodium level in the water, and they faithfully water the trees and then get into the system, and unfortunately, that's one of the way accumulate over the period of time and kill the tree. So, but I'm not sure that I don't know that high sodium levels are in Yellowhead County whatsoever. Maybe there is some, I don't know.
we do have one question in the chat. It says spruce or pine gall, how do we get rid of these? And if so, when?
Spruce and pine gall. I assume is the spruce coulee adulgite. Those are like a little tiny galls. They look like a scary, kind of looking thing, and they will never gonna damage your trees. If you don't know what you do with your time, you can pick them up and destroy them. I have in my spruce tree in front yard, I have probably 3,000 of them, like 3 or 4 years ago. Now I have none. Most of the time, wind and birds are taking care of them. Now there is one really quite, and you have in your county and in Norjack campground. It's called Western Gull Rust. That is on pine, and that's a completely different. And that gull rust can you have like a big swelling on the branches, and it's usually yellowish color, and then along the trunk it's like we call the hip. It's like in the middle of the trunk section. Sometimes it's like a small little hole, and that's where the big pine trees break off, and break off in half in midsection, and can be very dangerous. So, but for the small spruce gull adulgite, I would not worry. For the western pine gulls, you need to send the pictures to Patricia, and we will know what it is. And there is a few things. Definitely pruning is one of them to remove the western pine gulls. And again, you can prune them. You can prune them now, absolutely, or later on when it's cold. That when the temperature is a little further, that is not going to spread any disease.
Okay, just to add to that question, the person said, what are these like almost knots? Don't see any insects, but they're almost like an orb-shaped gull.
I need to see what it is, and I think we're still talking about spruce coulee adulgite. And it's, again, those that are done usually sometimes by the insects, and if you split that gull inside, you might find a small little tiny insect or larvae or something like that. But we just need to see what it is, and we can figure out very quickly. Any other question, folks?
We just have someone typing again, so
That's okay. Absolutely.
no typing.
No typing.
The next question, is it too cold now to water?
It shouldn't be. Check your soil. Check your soil, and if I don't think so. Soil is still frozen. We haven't. I don't know. Maybe you guys in West, you already got quite a bit. The soil that is already frozen, but not here in Edmonton. It's very dry, but soil should not be frozen, so it should not be a problem to water your trees. But if you do the watering very, very, very slowly, and again, use the drip line and try to water them now. But again, that's where you do it. Check your soil and see if it's hard like a rock and it's frozen. It shouldn't be. Then don't water. So there is no way. There's no water is gonna perlocate in deeper in the soil. Preferable, I would always tell people you should have watered a tree probably first week in October. That you for sure you have a plenty of time that water will soak into the soil. But if check your soil, if it's still not frozen, and you can still do the watering. Yeah.
No other questions. There's just a comment that says, excellent session, so much information.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And thanks to your county, it's Patricia and County Yellowhead organized this. So I just show up basically. If there is no more question, again, if you have, thanks for attending. If you do have some questions or problem with the trees, please send to Patricia and the county staff, and they are very knowledgeable. They will collect lots of information. Most of the time, they know what's the problem, and they will provide good information on it. And if they don't, they will send it to me, and then I will look at that. If I don't know, I'll find somebody who does. There's still many people who knows way more than I do. So
I find that hard to believe.
well, trust me, I know my limits, and on top of it, I know how much other people know, Patricia. So yeah, there is lots of people who knows way more than I do.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Tosha. Always a great presentation from you, and you know so much about trees and whatnot. And thank you everyone else for attending. Like I said, well, there's somebody typing right now, but like I said, the recording will be available probably by at least tomorrow or the next day if I can figure out how to send it and it's not too large of a file to send. And then I guess if anybody has any questions for anyone who is watching the recording after and it didn't attend tonight, feel free to send me an email with your question and I can either try to answer it or pass it along to Tosha. But yeah, just a lot of thank yous in the chat and great presentation, and people learned a lot.
Yeah, and probably, Patricia, I assume we're going to have in the springtime like a hands-on pruning and planting session somewhere in the county. I don't know.
Probably.
Patricia will probably organize all of that. So
everybody always loves those ones too.
Yeah, and they're always very well attended. Always. We have one year, I think 70 people or something like that. It was quite well done. Again, thank you so much. Have a good evening. Have a good winter. And well, hopefully we get some snow. Snow is a perfect insulator. I would love to see the snow and a foot of snow. That would be a perfect insulator for the tree roots and protect the roots from the cold wind. Snow is very good actually in that sense. Okay, guys, have a good evening. Thanks, Patricia.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Yeah,